Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. I believe this is a trifecta episode. I believe this is the third time that Jeremy Whitley has been on the show. And Jeremy, you also had me um, mess up the place with my face on your show last year. So thank you for having me on that to talk about Nick Cage and long legs. Have you recovered from long legs just yet?
I mean, do any of us really ever recover from long legs? It's just
Uh,
it leaves a mark on us forever, you know.
it
Uh,
really does. It really
hopefully,
does.
hopefully, when I am eventually confronted with the local church that offers me a life-size doll of my child,
Yes.
I will know better than to accept that.
Yes.
Thank,
Red
thanks
flags,
to Nicolas
everyone.
Cage.
That's right. Nicolas Cage is doing so much for humanity.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Also really good in the movie Renfield, but I digress. So we're talking comics, we're talking horror, and we're talking on this episode the new issue of Slay that you are launching, and it looks like you've co-authored this. The book is lovely and an interesting work in suspense and great visuals. So I'm curious about how this project came to be. How did Slay become part of your creative life?
So Slay is a book that I've been working on for a pretty good long time at this point. My friend Alex Smith, who is an artist who was at the time living here in the Carolinas, where I live, was uh, he and I were good friends and we're looking for something to work on together. And I was like, well, I want to do something with a little bit of fantasy and horror, and Alex just loves to draw big scary monsters. I was
Hmm.
like, what if we do like this, um, sort of, it's a little bit post-apocalyptic, a little bit fantasy, a little bit horror about a girl who wants to become a monster slayer like her mother was before her. The only problem is finding somebody to teach you how to do a thing like that. And there's very few out there. And she is after one in particular, who's this legendary monster slayer, who's named the Scarred Rider. Um, and so we wanted to tell this story of somebody who is uh, sort of trying to learn this thing, but also trying to get by while they're looking for this person. So pretends to be something they're not, and the fake it till you make it thing is not a great piece of advice when it comes to monster hunting.
Yes.
So she is quickly in over her head, both with the monster and with the person that she is pretending to be. Um, who is herself not particularly happy to be imitated and very good at killing things. So it's a rough combination for somebody to imitate. Um, so that is uh, sort of like where we started, and we wanted to do um, a crowdfunding campaign. I'd been talking to the folks at Zoop for a while, and they do specifically comics crowdfunding. Um, so you don't have the same sort of wide field of projects that you do at somewhere like Kickstarter, where you're it's, comics, but also a TV show and a watch and a new sort of trampoline are all sort of, sharing the same space. Um,
Hmm.
and this is just comics. And what really appealed to me about Zoop was that they specifically, because they just handle comics, they have options where they will handle all of the printing for you and all of the shipping for you. Um, and that's the funny thing about making independent comics is I got into writing comics because I like writing comics, not because I love hanging out at the post office for 6 hours in a day, um,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah. True.
sort of a harsh reality of fulfilling a crowdfund when it is successful. Um, so that was sort of the genesis of this, and then we ended up making it a flip book. So it's two first issues. So both the first issue for Slay and the first issue for another uh, book I've been writing uh, called The Girlfriend Survives, which is sort of a twist on superhero storytelling and the concepts of fridging and superheroes' girlfriends and sort of
Mm-hmm.
turning that on its head.
Nice, nice. Love the trope play. Love the trope play. And I also love horror. I've grown really a great affection for the genre in the past few years. Um, Anything that you'd like to say about what comics open up for horror or what they kind of sometimes make challenging for horror?
Sometimes I think horror can be a little challenging in comics for the same way that comedy can be a little challenging in comics sometimes, and that so much of it is about timing. Um, and you don't really have control over timing so much when somebody is reading a comic. There are things you can do to slow them down and space jokes out, but
Hmm.
you can't really make them read it slower. You can't make them take the beat that they're supposed to take. Um, I think one of the nice things with comics when it comes to horror is that you can sort of hide things from people behind the page turn. So,
Hmm.
you still have an option to surprise there. Um, and you can draw out some suspense with that, which is a nice thing to do. Um, it gives you sort of you can really knock somebody's socks off with stuff because the other biggest thing about doing horror in comics is that you don't have to figure out the budget for the effects. Um,
True.
you can do all sorts of horrible effects. You can make them as practical as you want them to be or as impractical as you want them to be. And you don't have to worry about how realistic it might look or how much it'll cost to do it. We have a giant hideous bear monster in this thing
Hmm.
that I think is a very effective like monster design, and it costs the same as drawing any other page.
That's right. That's right. No guy in a rubber suit, no CGI.
Mhm.
A co-author, co-creator that enjoys drawing monsters.
Absolutely. So that
Yeah.
was his that was a selling point for him is getting to draw uh big big ugly bloody monsters.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah.
There is a fair amount of blood in the book. Was this a cathartic writing experience for you? Were you listening to some thrash as you were writing this, or how did that go?
I tend to go when I'm writing horror stuff, I tend to go for sort of creepier soundtrack sort of stuff. Um,
Hmm.
what I do feel like it's cathartic, partially because I think what a lot of people know me for on the writing side is stuff that's much more all ages or YA, that's
Hmm.
much for much younger audiences. Um, I like to say I put myself in a real bind when I was, making Princeless 15 years ago that, the first the first page of it or within the first few pages I give her a sword and then I realized shortly thereafter that I cannot have her stab anybody. Um,
Right,
because,
right.
this is a teenage girl in a middle grades book. So, there's a lot of fights in Princeless that end with somebody getting kicked or knocked over or, a sword breaking, a house breaking, something like that. Um,
Yeah.
because yeah, I mean, ultimately, uh, being a middle grades fantasy book, you can't have a lot of gore and you can't really have your protagonist stabbing a lot of people.
This is true. This is true. What was the co-authoring and co-creating process like on the book?
For me, it's a lot of I sort of had a vision for what the characters were like already, and Alex and I sort of went back and forth with finding the right designs. I'm really, really happy with the designs we ended up coming up with for Layla and Ryder, who are our protagonists. Um, and a lot of me coming up with ideas for uh rough ideas for cool monsters and grisly things to happen. And Alex either going, yeah, yeah, let's do that, or hold on, I've got an idea for how to make this better, which is my favorite thing with artists is when they have an idea, like I bring them an idea and they're like, good, but how about if we,
Mm-hmm.
bumped this up to this level? What if I did this thing? because they always have a concept for how to make things more visual and more punchy in the moment. Almost any time that I've had an artist go, "Hey, would it be okay if I added this? If I, changed the panel layout to this?" And it's almost always like, "Yes, of course. That's way better. Go for it."
Nice. Let's give some love to the flip story because fridging has a long history in comics. It's kind of a move that sometimes creators make. It's controversial in kind of stirring up the anger of the superhero because of the death of the girlfriend. So, what inspired you to let the girlfriend live? I love the empowerment aspect of that, but there's also kind of the playful playing with genre kind of thing there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the case of The Girlfriend Lives, um, what I think I'm reacting to the sort of the way that that trope is played out. I mean, obviously, we've been talking about it since since at least the early 2000s. Gail Simone coined the phrase of, fridging based off of the Green Lantern storyline where the main character's girlfriend gets murdered and then stuffed in a fridge off screen, the main point of which is to make him sad and mad, which is
Hmm.
pretty pretty consistent with fridging. It is very rarely something that is done with an eye towards the development or story of that character who is being killed or being fridged. And mainly, it is 90% of the time a female character that is being underdeveloped and killed specifically for the purpose of, having something that the male character can react to, because men are not allowed to be sad about things other than women dying. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it's a very, I think, extension of toxic masculinity in a lot of ways, that it's sort of like not just killing this female character who is underdeveloped, but also um, making the male character's range of emotions and reactions very limited. And that, you can't think of anything else that he could do to upset this guy or ruin this guy's life other than to kill this female character. So I think there's been a lot of discussion about it, and there's been a lot of like people trying to figure out how to get around it, and trying to justify it, and then also I think a lot of people just taking those characters out of the stories rather than um, doing better versions of them,
Hmm.
or finding ways to tell stories about those non-super and female characters that go in these stories. Um, and my approach to it with The Girlfriend Lives was I wanted to reframe this story as being about that girlfriend character who is, the girlfriend of the secret identity, who unknowingly is wrapped up in this struggle between a great hero and a great villain, um, and suddenly finds herself, in mortal peril because of it. And rather than have her just uh, die or uh, disappear, has an opportunity to survive because she is a rounded character with some stuff of her own that people don't know about, and um,
Hmm.
is a surprise to I think all of the men involved in this story, and has her own motivations and her own story, and her own harrowing series of trials that spin out from this one moment of being targeted by, her boyfriend's greatest foe.
Very nice development, very nice development, and love that you're sharing not just one but two stories. In just a minute, we'll tell folks where to find it. You mentioned Zoop, so we'll make sure to include that link. Before we get there, anything that you're currently watching or anything that's coming up on the podcast for you that you'd like to mention? Any horror inspirations at the moment?
Um, let's see. So the episodes that are coming out right now in February are sort of we always do a Black Directors Month where we cover horror movies that are directed by Black directors. Um, and it was an interesting run of films this year. We've already released our episode on Sweetheart, which is sort of like stranded on an island with a monster movie. Um,
Mhm.
which I enjoyed is a fun one. We've got a significantly less fun one this Friday, which is we've got Blink Twice, which
Oh
is
yeah.
directed by Zoe Kravitz and is a very clever movie, but also has a significant amount of uh, abuse and sexual trauma sort of wrapped up into that story. So
Yes,
certainly
yeah.
not for everybody, but a very like interesting take. And I think certainly there's a lot of horror movies about rape and or revenge, um,
Hmm.
largely told by male creators. And this is, I think, a very interestingly like written and directed through a female lens version of that type of story.
Yeah.
It's a very
Yeah.
very specific one. And we're also talking about the sci-fi horror film Ash, which came out last year, which is directed by Flying Lotus, which is I don't know, that one's an interesting one. It's I wouldn't say it ranks particularly high in the movies that we've talked about on the podcast or even in amongst black director horror, but it is certainly like a visually interesting movie with a lot of stuff going on in it. Um, the one that we're getting ready to talk about this week is I think one of my favorites from the last year, um, which is Bring Her Back.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah, if people haven't seen this one, I referred to it last year in our year-end podcast as the feel bad movie of the year. Um,
It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, it is by the Philip Howe brothers who also did Talk to Me a couple years ago, which is an extremely good movie. Um, and I really think Bring Her Back is is really good. I think the Philip Howe brothers have a gift for getting teenagers in horror, um,
Mhm.
and like having teenagers who feel authentic without feeling just sort of like sketches of teenagers. They don't feel like so many female or so many teenage characters in horror movies still feel like 80s versions of teenage characters um,
True, true.
that have been being slashed since the 80s. Um, but this is I think a very like well observed um, teen horror story about, getting about their father dies. There's an older brother and a younger sister who is blind, and they're in their effort to not be broken up, they end up in this home where there is a lot of creepy stuff going on, and
Mm.
a foster mother who is obviously up to something, but is making things especially hard on this older brother.
Interesting, interesting. Good Rex, good Rex.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm a listener and I want to find out more, if I want to see the podcast, if I want to read the work, where might I go to do that?
So the podcast is Progressively Horrified. It is on Acast, so I believe it's acast.com/progressively horrified. And it is also, wherever your wherever you get your podcast, it's available there. We're also on Blue Sky at Prague Horror Pod, where you can see what we're up to.
Nice, nice. And Zoop for the book, any other spots that I should go to book-wise?
Yeah, Zoop is zoop.gg/c/slay, or if you go to the front page of zoop.gg, it is we're right up on the front as since we're running right now. Um, so we're trying to get to $5,000 for that one. We're currently a little better than halfway there with a few weeks left. Um, and there's all sorts of stuff on there as far as like signed comics issues of this book and other books that I've made, commissions and art prints and all sorts of other fun stuff. That's the main place to check that out. But my website is jeremywhittley.com, and that has news and stuff about all sorts of comics that I'm making, but also I am, every day on Blue Sky where I'm just Jeremy Whitley, and my newsletter, which is on Button Down, which there's a link to that on Blue Sky, and that'll keep you very informed as to what I'm up to.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Did we miss anything that you want to make sure to include before we close out?
Um, let's see. I did want to mention if people are listening to this who are who love comics, who want to make comics, or who want original art. In addition to the prints and the books, the crowdfund also offers commissions from each of our artists, both Alex and Luke, who are the uh, pencilers on the two books, and then Jamie, who is our colorist on The Girlfriend Survives. And it also has an option for editorial review with me. So if you have a project you're looking to make and you want somebody who is, a 15-year veteran of the industry who's been around and done a little bit of everything, then, you can help us get this book made and also get something like that for much cheaper than what something like that would normally cost.
Nice, nice. And I'll also mention I appreciated the coloring of the book and wonderful work there that really adds to the atmosphere as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Slay in particular has this really nice sort of stark coloring in that, we're out sort of in the wilds. It's very snowy. It's feels sparse, but not in sort of necessarily the traditional Western setting, but out
Mhm.
sort of in the mountains. It is uh it's not something that they talk about in the book, but it is set sort of in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. So, rather than long stretches of nothing, there are just long stretches of forest where,
Oh
anything could
no.
be out there.
Yeah. Yeah. The mysteries, the mysteries.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, always glad to talk with you, Jeremy. You're welcome back anytime. It's always a wonderful conversation. I'm glad that you're creating the things. May the conversation continue.
Thank you so much. And I am always happy to come on and to have you come on our show as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I would be delighted.